Hi, this is Dawn from the Sewing Palace, and today we're going to show you about our Creative Grids face mask templates. These templates make 3 different sizes of masks. They make it very easy to cut out your masks and to assemble them. Here is the medium size one. As you can see, it has a nose bar, goes over the ears, and it fits. So it can fit perfectly, but it leaves it a little bit loose down here so that you can actually breathe. I like it better than some of the different patterns. So I'm going to show you how to make these today. First of all, you're going to get your template out. It looks like this, and you're actually going to cut your fabric. If you notice on the side of the template here, it says there's a pleat here and that this is the side. This here would be the front of the mask. Okay, so you're gonna want to make sure that you have your fabric in the right direction, or you'll end up looking like this. So you want to make sure that your fabric is actually this way is up with the grain of fabric. Okay, today I'm doing masks on this pink here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it out. I have it on a rotating mat, which is nice, and I'm using a small rotary to go around these curves. If you use a large one, you'll risk cutting into your template, and you don't want to do that because it does. Now we're going to put the right sides together of your mask, and we're going to pin it along this curved edge. Okay, and I just put a couple pins in to hold it in place so it doesn't slide around it. Now we're going to take it over to our machine and we're going to sew this together. We're just going to do a 1/4 of an inch seam. And don't sew over your pins, people. It's bad for your machines. So we're just going to sew along here. I had to turn up the speed. I'm kind of a speed demon, so. Okay. Once we have it sewn together, we're going to trim it. So let's go back over here. And we want to trim here so that the when you open it up, it's going to lay nice and flat on a round curve, basically. So you can do it several ways. You can sit and you can do the little V's, which cut out the little nicks in it and give some people just do a little snip like this. But you can also take your pinking shears or your pinking rotary cutter. I have my pinking shears with me today, and I'm just going to cut right along this outside edge. And as you can see, it leaves a nice pinked edge. Then I'm going to take it over to my my ironing board. I also did another one, so here's my second set, because you need 2 sets, one for the inside of the mask, one for the outside of the mask. So this is kind of how mine's going to look when it gets done. A light pink on the outside and a bright pink. The nice thing about these two is they're also reversible. So let's say you want to be kind of bold one day and you want to be a little more just shiny one day. You can do that. So let's take it over to the ironing board. I have what they call a ironing ham. It's used for a lot of the clothing. See, you just lay it over the ham. You can just iron it and you get a nice flat seam. So that's kind of handy. So you can see that look how nicely that lays. And then you can make sure that you got that whole crease out. You know how sometimes you get that little bit of crease right where the seam is if you don't get it pressed all the way out. Oops. Okay. So then we're going to take it back over and we're going to pin it together. All right, so now that we have our 2 sides pressed, we're going to put right sides together with your seams to the outside, and we're just going to put a pin in the middle just to hold it in place so that we have it kind of lined up. Then you're going to take your outside edges here and we're going to sew down these sides, and we're going to do both sides 1/4 inch seams. So let's take it back over to the machine and we are going to sew these up. Now Put it back up here and we'll start again on the other side. We're going to do the exact same thing on this other side. Okay, once we have the two sides sewn together, we are going to get our elastic. I have the 1/4 inch elastic right here. It says to cut it anywhere from 6 to 8 inches. I'd say probably if you were a small, you'd probably want the 6 inches, or if you have just kind of a small, let's say from your ear to your chin is a little bit smaller, maybe not quite as large a chin, you may want to do it at 6 also. I cut mine at 7 for most of my masks that seem to fit pretty well, and it doesn't hold it so tight to your face that you can't breathe. So I thought that was kind of nice. So what you're going to do is you're going to have the curve of your fabric on the top. You're going to take your elastic and you're going to bring it inside the mask, lining it up with that seam that you sewed down the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pin it in place. And I just kind of scoot it over alongside and I want it to lay flat, okay? So we just pin it right in place. Then we're going to get our other piece and we're going to do the same on the other side. On this part though, you just want to make sure it's against that seam because that's where it needs to be, okay? So we're going to line it up as best as we can and then we're just going to put a pin in it. And then I'm going to put just a couple in to hold this where it needs to be. And then I'm going to sew across the top. Then when we sew across the top, our elastic will already be in the top. Okay, so we're going to sew along this top edge. Okay, once we get to the edge, we are going to, now we're going to trim this curved piece. So let me show you how we do that. So we're going to go over here and I have my handy dandy pinking shears again, and I'm just going to cut across this top. And I'm just going to trim away the excess. There's not a whole lot, so just be careful not to cut into your seam. Okay, so now once we have this edge all pinked and ready to go, we are going to take this elastic and we're going to make sure that it is not twirled around inside, or you just want to make sure that it's laying straight. And you're going to get it to line up with the edge of where those two pieces of the mask come together. So I'm going to place a pin to hold it there. I'm going to do the same with the other side. I'm going to make sure it's all laying flat and not twisted. Okay, and then I'm going to put this up against that edge. And we're going to tuck in the leftover elastic and make sure that it is nowhere in where we're going to be sewing our seams together. So then I'm just going to pin this. And I'm going to pin in about, it's a couple inches probably, about 2 inches in. Okay, and then I'm going to leave a little bit of a space and I'm going to pin right before that other seam. And then I'm just going to keep pinning across. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave a 2-inch opening to be able to turn this right side out. Okay, so now we're going to take it over and we're going to actually sew this to here. We'll back up and go forward again so we can secure the stitch off. We're going to do this, then we're going to start here, back up, go again until we get to the end. That way it'll secure the stitches so it won't start coming apart. At this point I'm going to back up and I'm going to secure that stitch off. And then I'm going to cut it right here. Okay. Then I'm going to go over to this other, right before this other pin, leaving about a 2-inch opening. And I'm going to back up a little bit. forward a little bit. I am going to sew clear to the end. Not running over any of those pins. We're making this many masks. We can't be down for maintenance if we ran over a pin. And so anyhow, now we're going to take it back over and I'll show you what we're going to do next. So this one you're going to want to trim off those little edges again. Okay? You can also use what they call a tube turner. They work very easy. I kind of have forgotten mine here today, but they work really slick for turning. And then I just took my little turning fork and just poked it out. And then if you pull these out, your little elastics, it pulls it right out to where it needs to be. Okay? So there's your mask, and you have this little seam here that's open, and I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with that. So you're going to take your Frixion. We have our whole mask put together, but it helps to have these little nose bars. These are little nose bars by the Gypsy Quilter. They look like this, and they're just a little bar. And what I did is I kind of just eyeballed it kind of in the middle, and then I marked with a Frixion pin where I want those placed inside my mask. So I'm just going to make a little mark here, and don't worry, this comes off when they just iron right off. And then I'm going to take it back over to my machine, and we're going to sew this a little pocket in there. Now I'm over at the sewing machine, and I'm going to take where I marked my 1/4 inch, and I'm going to sew right here, and I'm going to back it up a little just to kind of secure it because it's the top stitch here. So I'm just going to do about 1/4 inch in. I have my needle in a down position, and I'm just going to rotate. Okay, it's a little over 1/4 inch. You just have to get close, and then I'm going to sew to the middle, and then I'm going to pivot just a little bit again because it has a curve to it, and I'm just going to sew to. I kind of pinned it where, even though I'd marked it, just kind of hold it in place, and then I'm just going to secure my stitch here. I'm going to cut it. And then I'm going to take the little bar that I have, and these do have an adhesive on it, and I imagine it just depends on how you assemble your mask. I'm just going to leave the adhesive right on. I think it'll be fine. And I'm just going to put that inside the mask, and I am going to feed it right in that little slot. And it goes in really easy. Make sure it's against there where I had the mark and I sewed it. So now I'm going to go back over here, and I'm actually going to sew it to close the end. I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to line up with the other line, and I'm just going to stitch it securely. Nose piece in, we're going to sew around the outside because we still have a little bit of an opening from when we put our nose piece in. So we also want to get a pleat onto the side of our mask. It just makes it fit better around the face. So we're actually just going to put a little bit of a pleat right there, and we're just going to put a little pin in to hold it so that when we sew around the outside, it will make the pleat on the sides. So you want to make sure that your pleats are both going in the same direction. The fold. It looks kind of funny when you put one up and one down. I've done it, trust me. So anyhow, so we're going to start here at the top, we're going to go down, and we're going to sew all the way around. And we're just going to trim up our threads. So you have a nice little mask that just fits right around your nose. You can see that it's the pleats on the side kind of bring it in around your face. And then you're going to put it right behind your ears. With 7 inches, it's not tight to my face, which makes it a little easier to breathe. You could make these 6 inches if you wanted it a little bit smaller, or if you're doing the small size, you may want to definitely do 6 inches or less. And then you just press the nose piece to fit around your nose, and voila, you have a mask. Thanks for joining us today.